Good evening. I call this meeting of the Lake Bluff Public Library's Finance Committee to order at 5:31 p.m. I will take roll call now. Trustee Hayes.
Here.
Trustee Meierhoff.
Here.
We do have a quorum for this committee to meet. Thank you very much. I will move on to asking for a volunteer to take minutes. Bill, would you be willing?
Yeah, I'll do the minutes. If Matt comes up, we'll keep continuity in there. So, yep.
Okay, thank you so much, Bill. All right, first item is to review and approve the Finance Committee meeting minutes from the November 2nd, 2022 meeting. Attached to your Zoom invite, I'll go ahead and share the screen if you'd like to review on screen. And many thanks to Kathy for sharing these minutes.
Yeah, these are the minutes from November 2nd, the ones that Matt did from January 10th.
So we need to approve both.
Got it. Okay.
We didn't have the minutes at our last meeting from the November 2nd meeting, so that's why this is being here. So thank you for confirming. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the November 2nd Finance Committee meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from November 2nd.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved for the Finance Committee meeting on November 2nd, 2022. I'm going ahead and share my screen of the minutes from the January meeting of January 10th, 2023. Which are now being shared on your screen. I'll zoom in a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any additions or changes to the minutes?
No.
No, not for me either.
Okay. Great. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 10th, 2023 Finance Committee meeting?
I'll motion to approve the minutes from January 10th.
And I second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Minutes approved from the January 10th Finance Committee meeting. So the next item on our agenda is to review the updated revised draft of the 2023-2024 draft budget. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, and so what I will do is just zoom in a little bit more. I'm going to start on the Revenues tab. This has been the revised budget draft. I've highlighted in yellow the changes that this committee is proposing to make, not just to any of the original proposed budget items, but even some of our accounting names and naming conventions as well. So I'll go through the items that I highlighted here. So the first change is the change in naming of our originally named fines and forfeitures budget category, and also the budget line fines. And so what we are proposing to do, we're proposing as a committee, is to change the budget category name to forfeitures, and I'll take a suggestion for the name of the actual budget line from any of the committee members here. That's the first item. Everything else is the same from the last budget presentation in our last Finance Committee meeting. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm also going to share the green column. So the difference between the last budget draft and this budget draft is that I was able to input the numbers of the year-to-date spending with the most recent spending numbers from December 2022 approved expenditures and revenue. So as you're reviewing this document, note that this column is now changed. The numbers from last time are changed. These are the numbers that reflect accurate spending or revenue as of the December 2022 approved board packet. And so you'll notice the numbers are also going to change in the gray columns as well as the green columns over here. I am very less concerned about the gray because that's a comparison between the green column and the blue column for the 23-24 budget. This is what I think is most useful here in our meeting tonight is the percentage change from what was originally budgeted in 2022-23, and then the money change, the dollar amount change from what was originally budgeted in 22-23 to 22-20 or 23-24.
Okay. Quick question, Renee. When you
Yes.
say in the green area from between, at the moment that says 1,032,715, which is not our year-to-date number. That's
No,
okay.
that isn't. So that is, I
That's
believe
the
the
only
last number
one.
was 800. Yep, thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
Can you read that number out loud again for me?
The number you've got on there is 1,032,715. You
And
said
that was budgeted, but we haven't received that due to the village
Right.
and a couple other things.
But what you were saying earlier is that the December 22 is our year-to-date values of all the accounts.
I think I forgot the property. I mean, I'll be honest. I think I
Okay.
didn't update this one because it wasn't
Got it.
accurate
Okay.
even.
No problem.
Um,
Okay.
But if you were to review, like if you were to go back, Bill, with the board packet from December, all of the other numbers are the same.
Great. Okay.
I admit I didn't know what to put for that because we don't
No problem.
have an
We
accurate
don't need,
reflection.
right.
Um,
Okay. Just to clarify. Okay.
I
Thank
I
you.
should have mentioned that in the beginning. Thank you, Bill. All right. So scrolling down, the last finance committee meeting, there were recommendations to move, or excuse me, add lines to the revenue spreadsheet to reflect the annual per capita grant numbers and the annual miscellaneous grant numbers, which was originally a separate tab in the budget spreadsheet. But what this change does is brings all of the revenue together for a more holistic review and comparison. So what I've done was bring those numbers from the tab grant funding budget to the revenue tab, adding the appropriate budget numbers and lines and the amounts that we received this year. And I included that same amount for budgeted for 23-24.
Okay.
And then the miscellaneous grants, last time we talked, I budgeted 1,000. We didn't receive any this year, but I still would recommend budgeting 1,000 for next year.
Okay.
And then we had a long conversation about miscellaneous income. You'll see this is 10,000. So the original number from 2022-23 was high because we were receiving money revenue from the foundation as a to support and fund staff part-time staff person. So originally, the last budget proposal, we discussed, what that number should be. And the discussion originally said, let's bring that down to 3,000.
Yep.
However, we also discussed removing and zeroing out the contingency line in the expenditure spreadsheet, and we'll get to that in a second. And combining both the miscellaneous income, the miscellaneous expenditures and the contingency expenditures together, and also having one budget line for that in the expenditures. So what you see here is actually a small increase from the last discussion, so that we have both, so that we're reflecting the decrease from the staff person that is no longer with the library, but an increase to support other miscellaneous expenditures in the fiscal year.
Okay. But where is what you've done is eliminated an expense.
Yep.
But but the income is but you've increased the income.
So
I'm a little confused as to, if you eliminate an expense, then where would the income come from on this particular line?
So one of the things we talked about last time in with miscellaneous income is that there could be potential miscellaneous revenue from the library for the library.
Okay.
And if you'd like, we can decrease that number to something different.
Right.
The original number was 3,000 that we were
Yeah.
going to make it. So what would you propose, Bill?
Well, I'm just saying not to kind of confuse the fact that we've eliminated an expense, but to offset it with income that we don't know at this moment in time, we don't know where it's coming from, that we would sort of keep things as accurate as be possible on an account by account basis. And but the other thing though, Renee, is that there's other expenses from the gifts and grants. There was an unrestricted donations and restricted donations of 17 grand. So this number could still go up, but
I was going to ask you today, after I reviewed this, what your
Yeah.
recommendations were for the restricted and unrestricted. So the restricted donations are just that. I mean,
yeah,
it's not revenue that we can spend or allocate just anywhere. And I'm almost wondering if that's why it wasn't in Eric's original budget spreadsheet, the way it was designed. And then unrestricted donations, that includes the Friends of the Library, but with regards to the Friends of the Library, they do still have to review proposals and approve each item. So while it's unrestricted in that way, it is still relatively restricted within the scope of each proposal.
okay, yeah.
So
Well,
I opted not to move it, but I was going to talk to you all about it today.
Yeah, because basically, you could still leave the 10,000 in there, knowing that you've still got potential to come from those other donations. But then, should the donations be on its own line item, since it is an account? I think it's 38,300.
What we could do, we could create a new category instead of, or just a new line. I mean, as you're saying, a new line item, and just move those over. But I would just be I don't know. I mean, this is some accounting,
right.
process improvement that we're here talking about right now. So Kathy, do you have any insight or recommendations with this?
Other than I would yield to Bill and perhaps a follow-up conversation with Bettina. I do recall from past budget discussions, this whole budget used to be filled up with a whole bunch of lines that were not used. And it was a very cumbersome process for the village to remove a line or to change nomenclature of lines. I don't know if that still is problematic, but she's the person who would tell us that.
Right.
But as far as far as accounting questions, so that it doesn't come up with the auditors in a few months, I would probably talk to her first.
Yeah. What I would think, Renee, is
Yeah.
that when we look at our revenue statements at the end of the month,
Mhm.
they have the two lines, unrestricted and restricted donations, on there.
They
Except
do.
that-
You're absolutely right.
So this format that you're sort of that you're taking over from has all of that in separate pages. So we could bring over the two accounts, the unrestricted donations, restricted donations, which is 38300, 38315, and then miscellaneous income would stay still there, 38900. So now you've got three line items for those three components. And then at that point, then I would bring down the miscellaneous income to what we think it could be, which at the last meeting we said 3. And then add the other two lines in there. And if we wanted to be conservative with the unrestricted donations and restricted donations, we could make those 7,000 if it keeps everything balanced with your accounts, so to speak.
Let me talk to, I think this is a good discussion and one that I can bring some ideas to Bettina about this, because the other piece of this is that we have the final number that we're looking at, right? So this is going to be the total budget, or the total amount of revenue that we want to budget. And then looking at the expenditures list, I want that to match up. And the thing is with the unrestricted donations and even the restricted donations, it's not an apples to apples comparison with how we delegate that money. So if that makes sense, because we are restricted in various ways, so I can't just like plug in.
Because that might,
unless what I do is I add in the expenditure tab almost like something to counterbalance, two more lines.
Well, or you could just put it into the reserve at this point, Renee, and then that way we want to do 20 to balance it out the way you have the expenses at the moment. If we were to reduce that, if we were to add those other two lines, reduce this, the net gain at the moment, keeping all the things apples to apples, would be another 10 grand. And then what you could do then is on your expense side, where you've got 20,000 going to reserve, you could put that at 30. And that way, if Bettina comes back and says, okay, this is how we if there's a way that she wants to do it, and I'll be glad to sit in on that if you've got a time set with her, Renee, just to sort of make sure that I'm not overcomplicating it either. But if we went to 38900, bringing that from 10 to 3, and adding the other two lines from the grants of unrestricted and restricted, then and then that then would increase your library fund revenue to 1163,707, and then the expenses will add the contingency transfer to reserve. And if we use that account as our sort of holding area, then we can kind of adjust from there. That way, then you don't have to go back and do any more work on the expense side of the different accounts. Everything will be balanced out. Does that make sense?
Yes, it completely does. My facial reactions are mostly about the decision to put it in the reserve budget line. I would, because that's not fully accurate either. If the rest of the board, when we propose this budget draft to them, if they see, oh, we're going to be putting 30,000 in the reserve, that's actually not entirely true. I think maybe a meeting with Bettina, Bill, if you're open to that. And I think there's just some, because I would almost rather add the two lines on the expenditure list to balance out the restricted and the unrestricted donations so that it's the same on both sides. And I think that just provides a little bit more transparency and accuracy with that numbering, with that budgeting, but I don't know. Let's talk to her.
Right. Because then,
Okay.
because yeah,
Then we still need to lower this
yeah,
to
I would
3.
keep that the same. I would reduce that to 3, and
Okay.
then you've still got your, because I'm assuming that we're going to get a donation from the Friends, and if it's been 15,000 over the last few years, I'm assuming it'll be 15 again.
Yeah, and it depends a little bit on how much they collect. I was just at the Friends meeting just this Saturday.
Oh, okay. Did they give you an
um,
idea what they
yeah,
think it was?
so we typically, well, they like to keep their account balance at a specific number. And so
Okay.
they like to spend everything else that they bring in. They haven't brought in as much this year as they did last year, but there's still time. But also they haven't spent as much money on us as they have by this time of year in previous years. So that's why we're going forward with another proposal for them in the next couple weeks. They said, we have more money to spend and we want to have it, we
Yeah.
want to have our account balance at a reduced number. So it can be anywhere from, it's always about 15,000 a year, and sometimes it's even more than that. But
Okay.
I have numbers from the last year about previous spending.
Yeah. So
But that's
I
the
would,
thing, it's not open-ended. You know, I had to put together a packet, and like each item is listed separately. They can approve all 4, they can approve 1 or 2. And then the money that we get is a check just to reimburse for that item that they approve. So
okay.
that's why I'm a little hesitant putting it anywhere else.
You know, it's
But
interesting that they say they're below budget because they paid for the fireplace
The
last year.
fireplace this year.
Not below budget. Sorry if I wasn't explaining correctly. So they are in their payments to us. They haven't paid as much money to us as they usually do. So and also they haven't received in their annual collection letter. By this time last year, they haven't received as much compared to last
Yeah.
year. So no, they still have, I mean, we went over the treasury report on Saturday. I could even read it to you now. But no, it's just about this year's spending. And I think there's also a history of the library not asking for multiple items. It's really only been 1 or 2 items. And I think with the director position being vacant, they limited their request to just a few items. And so my strategy was a little different on Saturday to give them 4 options. They actually, approved all 4 because they said they had more money to spend. So that was that's how that worked out.
Yeah.
That actually, the timing of all this is very good with the new director, and basically they have a whole new board, and they have a new way of doing business. So I think
Yes.
all of you developing that together is good for everybody. So I'm sure they're all
Agreed.
happy about that too.
Yeah, they were really thrilled to fund all 4 options. So, and we're thrilled to have them be funded. So
what
that was
was
great.
what was the dollar amount of those 4?
Approximately $4,000.
Great.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Really great. Big success day. So just to summarize, I'm going to email Bettina and CC you, Bill, about scheduling a meeting to talk about some of our accounting questions.
Yep.
And then, put together a Zoom meeting for that.
Yeah.
So,
and
go ahead.
if it's a Friday afternoon, I could probably, I could do that, or over a lunchtime, depending on what you and Bettina's schedules are looking like as well. Doesn't have to be in the evening.
Okay. Thank you. That works out. Okay. Any other discussion points or changes or questions about the revenue tab of the updated proposed budget? So just to confirm, I'm making that change of miscellaneous income back down to 3, which we think is a more reasonable estimation given opportunities right now.
And
Oh,
then,
here's Matt. Just popped up on my screen. Okay. All right, let's see. Okay. He's connecting. Welcome, Matt. Take your time getting situated.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I'm so sorry. I had this in my work calendar at 6 o'clock, and here I thought I was a couple minutes early.
It's okay. It's all right. We've all been there, right?
Yeah. Oh, excuse
So
me. Anyway,
do you want me to give you an update on what we've covered so far? Kathy, if you'd like to bow out.
Yes, if you don't mind. Hi, Matt.
Hi.
You're not chasing me away. I asked Renee if I could be excused if you guys were both available. I have a friend who had some surgery, so I'm making chill. That's what I'm doing, is trying to get dinner over to her house. So
That's so
I'm
kind.
going to finish that up and let you guys do your job. So
All right.
thanks so much.
Apologize
Good
for
luck,
holding up.
everybody.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Oh, no
Hope they
problem.
feel
No
better
problem at all.
soon.
I'm
Thank
right
you,
on
Kathy,
schedule
so
with
much.
everything. Sure. Thanks very much.
Sure. Bye.
I don't know what's most efficient. I mean, I don't want to belabor the process with getting me up to speed, but
I can
have
do a
any
quick
substantive
review.
changes? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I can do a quick review. The document that I sent out, attached to the meeting invite is the version 2. Everything that's in yellow is updated from the last version you all have seen. So I'm just walking through the yellow. The main discussion point that we've had recently is the miscellaneous income number, changing that back to 3,000 in light of our conversation last time. Because of the foundation opportunities, there will be less. So originally it was 10. And so we think the 3,000 is more reflective of the opportunities we currently have for miscellaneous income. But also we discussed, Bill suggested looking at the grant funding budget tab. And we discussed this idea of bringing all of the revenue, including the unrestricted donations and restricted donations, to this first page. And so I'm working with a format that was just kind of passed on to me from my predecessor. And I explained the reason I didn't move those 2 items is because there are more stipulations on how that money is spent.
Yep.
So it wouldn't be necessarily just adding an extra whatever we think this is, $17,000 to the overall pot, and then me divvying it up in the expenditures report so that they match each. And we were talking about the Friends just now, and so they approve items on a case-by-case basis, even though they're considered unrestricted donations. There's still some restrictions on them. So where we landed was I'm going to email Bettina at the village and CC, I could CC you too, Matt. And we're going to schedule a meeting to ask a few questions. Are there some accounting, is there accounting cleanup we can do on this proposed budget spreadsheet that more accurately reflects the restricted and unrestricted donations as revenue, but also on the expenditure side, is there a way we can incorporate it so that it's telling the right story, that it's not money that we can just spend anywhere in any budget line. It's also, it has its own restrictions. So Bill was suggesting putting it in reserves and saving it there. And then I was a little hesitant because, if the rest of the board sees this proposal and sees, oh, we're going to put $37,000 in reserves, that's actually not what we're doing. So that's some background. Bill, please, anything to add? What did I miss? Or
Yeah,
what?
no, but basically, Matt, just to try and make the budget look like the same way that we look at our monthly revenues and expenditures, because that has the unrestricted and restricted donations all in the same revenue page. So rather than doing something here and then looking at it somewhere else, put it all in the same place. And so basically there'll be 2 added lines in there for the extra 17,000. And if we don't know where to put it on expenditures, the idea, like Renee said, was I was just suggesting just to put it into the reserve, so we've captured it. And then if we want to look back at some of the expenses and bolster some of those areas, if there's furniture that we want to look at, because you've got library equipment there, maybe some of it goes into there as far as expenses. Maybe there's computers. You mentioned a little bit about some of the having to use your own laptops. Maybe there's some things that go in there. So just as put it, the transfer into reserve is just a placeholder to knowing that that's where the monies are, that we can look at it from there.
Okay.
That was a way better summary. Thank you, Bill. So any questions with that, Matt, or anything else up to this point?
No, that makes sense. It's a unique situation, so having some unique accounting parameters for it, I think. Yeah.
Exactly. So without moving the donations yet, we're just kind of keeping those on hold for now as separate. The updated total budgeted revenue, I should pick a different color, maybe orange, so it's a little more visible, is 1,100,046 and then $707. So I'll have to do some adjusting on the expenditure side to reflect that. But are we good to move on to the expenditure list?
Yes, I am.
I'm fine, yep.
Right. So I'm going to start at the top of this tab and just highlight what I described at the beginning of the meeting, Matt, was that I went through and I updated all of these numbers in the green column. So remember, we didn't know how those numbers were identified before. What I've done is I've incorporated the most recent financials report that was approved at the board meeting this month with regards to spending. So for example, right now you can even see as of December, end of December, we're at 113,941 with our librarian salaries, and we have budgeted, we have budgeted 210,000.
Mhm.
So that's referring to anything that I didn't know if someone needed me. Did you need me? Oh, you're just saying hi. Sorry. Thank you. So sorry, everybody. So with regards to a savings, even just within this fiscal year, as we were talking about previously with regards to bonuses, adjustments in salary, there is ample, and there will be ample room for me to evaluate how much I've got left. I'm kind of working through some calculations to determine an average amount per month, and then would extrapolate from that how much we need to save to cover us out the rest of the year, and then what we would have remaining. And that would just be for the salaries line. And the same number is true, or the same type of number is true for the staff salaries. It's much, much reduced. So I anticipate some flexibility there.
So can we go
So-
through, I want to understand this a little bit better. So
Yeah.
Our budget for 22-23 was 210 for librarian salaries. And as of December 22, our experience is 114,000.
Correct.
Okay. And I get
End
that
of.
within the context, yeah, with Eric leaving. Why is the experience on the staff salaries so much lower than budgeted?
I do not know. I do not know. One of my thoughts initially is that difference with Melissa's position. We did, last meeting, we did talk about how there was originally that 17,000 built into staff salaries. And she no longer works here.
Yeah.
And we were going to keep that money for next year. But I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out which staff are paid out of which line.
Mhm.
There is currently a staff vacancy. I can ask the other department heads if there was a staff vacancy that they knew of the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty close. It's 230 over 8 months. So if it was 240 at 8 months, it'd be 30,000 a month times 12, which would be the 360.
Yep,
So
yep, yep. Okay, so it's pretty close. So does it, and what I'm trying to get to ultimately here is that does the 23-24 budget, does that give us any flexibility in, well, I guess one, are there open positions reflected in that? And then does that give us, is that just a head count times current compensation, or is there any flexibility in that number?
A lot of the flexibility is determined by how much money I had to work with in terms of designating for the different budget accounts.
Mhm.
And so in balancing how much we had available to us, or what I thought we could designate to staff salary, these are the
Okay,
numbers that I came up with.
okay.
I wanted to at least have the numbers be what we had last year.
Mhm.
Given some of the savings that I think we have, there's flexibility in this librarian salary. That's why it's not as much of an increase here. So it wasn't like I estimated a percentage and multiplied everybody's salary times 0.2. I was looking at the dollar amount to see how much we had and having to balance the dollars with the increased levy with the building costs and so forth. So it's distributed throughout the budget spreadsheet.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. I knew that it wasn't going to be something that I could just, put together in an equation and ask for more that way. But I also was looking at this number, I'll just say, and comparing it to inflation. I mean, it's not there, but I really was just trying to increase these two numbers as much as I possibly could while still being able to balance all of our other needs and the other increases that we had.
Yeah, I think you've got an inflation adjustment there plus some, so that's good. But what I'm driving at is that 360 number and then our experience to date. Like, does that reflect a vacancy that we haven't filled, and therefore implicit in that 385, if we don't fill it, there's even more room in that budget, or is that earmarked too?
I understand now.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yes, I mean, it does include one staff vacancy that I know of. It includes a part-time youth assistant. And the other aspect of this too is that I believe there are hours that were never filled in the library after Lindy left.
Okay.
And I'm piecing it together slowly because I don't think all the department heads really understand, and Bettina doesn't necessarily understand, but with Lindy's job being overseeing a variety of items, another position was made full-time, but that person was relatively new to the library. And so there was not only a salary difference, but there were insurance differences as well. I also heard that there's a part-time position for weekend rotations that is yet to be filled. And that's not been, I don't have more information beyond that. And so it's at least one position, it's one part-time position. And I think with the redistribution of responsibilities,
Mhm.
there's also extra padding in there too. What I could do is I could look at the 2022, 2021, 2022 April expenditure financials and see if I can get some sort of number that is reflective of both librarian and staff for
Mhm.
how much we spent at the end of that fiscal year, because the April numbers should be the entire fiscal year.
Yep, yep.
And then, you know, granted it's 2021, 2022, but at least I would have some basis for comparison.
Well, and do you have that there? And aren't the actuals for fiscal year 21 and 22? Those are
Oh my gosh.
prorated, yeah. So you have those there.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. I forgot.
So I think it's just making any overlay for that. Are there changes in head count? Like, does that imply what roles were subsidized with those salaries, and
Or
how does that?
absorbed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absorbed, exactly. And then how does that compare with where we are now and what we're contemplating for 24?
That's a really good point of analysis. I'll continue to gather information and ask that pointedly. And what I was told was that there wasn't a one-to-one hiring of Lindy's role. So I think there's some substantial savings there that's not reflected.
Yeah, and it gives you at least the wherewithal to say, okay, this is the structure we had in place, 2+ years ago. How does that compare with my needs now and
Yep,
what people need to be
absolutely.
compensated? Yeah.
Thank you. Great discussion.
So I might come late, but I try to hit heavy.
Oh, no, it's great.
I'm so sorry to waste an hour of your time. I hope
Oh.
yeah.
It's okay.
No, not really.
Bill and I got some stuff done.
You're gracious.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so great discussion. Thanks, Matt. Then, okay, the other thing that I did, since we didn't talk about this, but I was really drilling into these numbers. We have spent $17,185 to date on our pension, which is our the IMRF fund, the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund. What I was really surprised by that. And I also think that has to do, now that we're talking about it, Matt, I think it has a lot to do with Lindy no longer being employed in the library, because extrapolating this number, even just on average, not only is there going to be a savings to the library from Eric's salary to mine, because IMRF is a specific percentage of your salary. It's just automatic. You can't enter more in, or you can sign up for a 457 plan, but IMRF is just a straight percentage of your salary. So not only is there savings from Eric's departure, but there's also savings in the decrease of our salary, the change in our salaries. But it's a huge amount difference from 21, 22. So
well, just consider though that 17,000, assuming everything straight lines, will annualize at 26, right?
Well, I actually increased. So the way that I did it was, and please help me if you think there's a better recommendation. Given this was 9 months of IMRF spending for the library. 8. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I extrapolated that and identified how much more on average we might need for the rest of the fiscal year.
But it looks, just doing a quick math, Renee, it looks pretty close to your 26.
Yeah, it's
when you
gonna go
extrapolate.
Yeah, so that exactly. So that's 17, even though it's a lot less than certainly the 41. I think you're spot on with Lindy's departure, and there may be some acceleration in terms of what has to be contributed as you get closer to retirement. I don't know how the mechanics of it, but if I take that 17,185, annualize that for the rest of the fiscal year, it'll be 26, which, given Eric not having to contribute for his library director for a portion of the year, I guess makes sense.
Yeah.
And the reason I brought it to you was because originally this number was 31. I think I had this number. So I reduced from version 1 to version 2 based on those calculations. That I reduced this contribution to be more reflective of our actual spending.
I think it probably
s-
still wants to go up a little bit. Here's why, because you're gonna now come back on board. There might be some subtle salary difference, but it's not it's not huge, so
Mhm.
you know, that is going to be, the
Yeah.
library will be contributing back into that retirement fund at your salary level. So
Yep.
I think that 26 annualized here is underscoring what we would expect, what our expectation would be going. It's not
I agree.
underscoring,
I
it's
agree with
lower
you.
than what our expectation would be
Yeah.
going forward. I think you could probably take it up to 29.
Okay,
I wouldn't haircut it too much.
Right.
Yeah.
got
What are
it.
your thoughts, Bill?
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you. I think that it's artificially lower with Eric being out of there
Yep.
and going in there. I feel comfortable maybe a little bit higher than that. Matt's just at 29. I mean, in that ballpark, 29, 30, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I was just looking for any room.
Yeah,
So
I like the
I
level
wanted to,
analysis.
yeah,
Right.
well, it's what you got to do. So
Yep.
that's why I highlighted this one to have the discussion. So I
Right.
really appreciate the recommendations there.
Right. And Renee, just in the back of your mind, sort of think that, you know, we've had the sort of the unrestricted, restricted donations. So there's 17 grand there minus the 7 that we took out to reduce the 10 down to 3. So at the moment, there is still a buffer of 10 grand
Okay.
that we're playing with. So if we took this up to 29 or 30, that still just leaves you with a buffer of 6 or something like that.
Okay.
5%. Matt, do
Just
you think 30 would be a good number in there?
Yeah, I might err on the side of caution there, and just,
Yeah.
especially since we already have a little bit of a buffer.
okay. Do you want me to make those changes now and then I'll just highlight them for our conversation with Bettina?
Yeah.
Okay. Because right now our expenditure and our revenue lines don't match, but as we discussed, we haven't moved these 2 lines over yet.
Correct. Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah, I'm interested to see what she'll recommend. Okay, so going back to expenditures. Other items I wanted just to highlight from the last meeting that we were going to see changed on this proposal. And actually this first one is not one, but I already got the bill for the elevator maintenance that's due. Of course, they're increasing their cost, and when I was playing around with the numbers, I had like a couple of the original numbers, I had like another 100 to work with. So I increase it just ever so slightly, and that will cover us for the first payment for the elevator maintenance. It's everything that we've discussed with our contractors and our vendors.
Okay.
So Kathy and I had a good discussion about outreach. I'll summarize it to say, you know, we need to continue to really figure out what our scope for outreach is. And also I need to do some analysis with staff so that we can give you all the numbers that accurately reflect how this funding is being spent. I don't think there's enough consistency for me to really say, this is outreach, this is adult programming. I don't think staff know. So, and we're already having these conversations to talk about very specifically, what are we trying to do with outreach as a strategy, but also how are we using that money? There was a conversation today, for example, with the yard signs for the Star Library campaign. We have a $500 budget for marketing this year. And the suggestion was, well, we can always just charge it to outreach. And I said, well, it's not outreach. You know, if it's marketing, it's marketing. And I need the budget lines to reflect what we're actually spending and what is funding that, what type of items are, you know, is that budget line funding. So there's a lot of work to be done just in terms of staff support. But in terms of other discussions Kathy and I had, there's opportunity for it to be increased. And so I kind of compromised. The original number was 6,500. But budgeted last year was 5,500, so I'm proposing 6,000 to cut it in the middle here, and open to any feedback as well. Marketing, Kathy and I had a discussion. She asked me if we had a marketing line. I said, yep, we do. It's new as of the last fiscal year. As you can see here, 00. So this was a new budget line item added. I think there's a lot of opportunity for that line to be increased, especially if we do any sort of community engagement and we're trying to really market and get the word out for focus groups or surveys. It's a very, very small number. Even the yard signs and the A-frame for the Star Library campaign, it's coming in around $400, and that's our entire marketing budget right there. So, and that's only 50 yard signs. So I took opportunity to propose a slight increase here based on a conversation I had with Kathy. So that's what I wanted to highlight here. And then oh, go ahead, please.
Is that going to be enough, you think, for other projects, Renee, that you have?
No, no,
Okay.
I don't. And
So,
if we, so go ahead, Bill.
I was
Sorry.
going to say, so circle that one again. Just thinking ahead with what we've done at the moment on these accounts, there's $6,000 still to be expensed to balance everything up. So if there are one or two areas that you think that you want to look at, maybe just highlight those. If marketing,
I have a running list right now. Yep. So I have marketing, I have IMRF, you know, just to give us a little bit more wiggle room.
But at the moment, the marketing number is at 1,000.
Yes, the proposed.
So what would you think that number? Would that be something that's 1,500, 2,000?
You know, and I'm the type of person that really likes to budget for known items. And since I don't, you know, I've only been in, 3 weeks, like I want to have some clear ideas about what we're trying to market. Even something like a Facebook ad, you can spend $50 to boost a post, and it, and that could be money spent to see attendance come out at an event or what have you. We haven't had our long range planning conversations. We haven't even announced the new Stro Room. So if we wanted to do an ad for the Stro Room on Facebook or wherever, there's opportunity always, I think, in libraries to do marketing. I think libraries as an industry are not good at marketing because people know us as books, and that's really it, when really there's just so many other ways there are so many other things we do, and I think there's so many other ways we can market our services. I don't know what opportunities are through the chamber either. I have my chamber meeting with Lake Bluff Chamber coming up here. So I increased that to 500 only, but I also want to be judicious and not over budget and over promise anything. That makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. Valid, super valid and appreciated, Bill. Thank you.
Okay.
The rest of these numbers are the same. I'm going to scroll down. This has a 7. This has a 7 because of a previous, but we've changed, so it doesn't have to have the 7 anymore.
That's very precise.
I was just every dollar.
You need to take it out to 2 decimal places.
So it's a lot of it. It's because of the property taxes, because that number is just so, it's not even. With regards to library furnishing, we increased that to 6,500. I wanted to mention the $7, and that's why it's highlighted. I also wanted to talk to you about the transfer to reserves. So we had a conversation last time about, well, maybe we don't transfer so much to reserves if we want to put money here, there, or the other. The last number you saw here, I believe, was 25,000. And so I wanted to have a conversation tonight about 20,000, which is still more than last year, or this year technically. But it freed up a little bit of extra an extra money, to be budgeted elsewhere. So I did want to have that conversation as well.
Yeah, the history of the reserve goes back to the big ticket roof expense where
Yeah.
things were, depleted quite a bit, and the goal was always then to build the reserve back up somewhere between 25 and 50% of operating profit,
Okay.
of operating expenses. So the 20,000 was always a sort of has been a goal in the last few years that I've been on the board, and so that's the magic number that's been in there. And I guess with the report on the building, I think there was some concern to to make sure that there was enough in there to cover some of the projects that were looking down the road, which the real big ones are 10 years out, but there was also a list of other things that we need to do, such as the boiler and some of the lighting and things like that.
And we had a
need to
great
work on.
building and grounds committee meeting yesterday where Janie, Bonnie, and Kathy and I have already started prioritizing what needs to be done this fiscal year with the money that we have now, and then next fiscal year. So to confirm, I understood correctly. Are you saying that 20 is okay, or would you and Matt recommend to go back to the 25, which I originally had because of the increased levy?
Can I ask a question? So the 16,000 that's our experience to date, we had the 16 in the budget and then the 16 to date. Are we still going to be transferring to reserve over the remainder of the fiscal year? So does that annualize at 24?
No, I think that's another number that's fixed. There's two numbers that are fixed in there, Matt.
Okay.
The tax, the revenue coming from the real estate tax at the top, and this number here. And I think Renee, correct me if I'm wrong, and then everything else then is year to date through December, with the exception.
That's a great way of saying it. I didn't know that I could say it that way. Yes. So here is the number that I kept the same, even though it's fixed, even though that doesn't reflect our year to date. We're 2 months late from receiving our property tax disbursement anyway. But for budgeting purposes, I put the same there because I knew that that's what we should be receiving by the end of the fiscal year. And then the taxes that trail for the next couple of months after the fiscal year. So yes, that is a fixed number. And then this is a fixed number, the 16,000.
Okay. So in principle, I'm okay with the 20,000. I think, what we need to get to is, in light of that longer range, and this becomes a conversation with other committees and the broader board around the long range plan, because to your point, Bill, some of those projects are several, if not a decade off, but they're huge numbers. And I've never been comfortable with the 25 to 50%. I know that's like kind of conventional wisdom around what's good for a library, but I think we need to look at that through the lens of what our physical plant and what's coming down the pike, regardless of what's a good benchmark. So it's a long-winded way of saying I'm okay with taking the 25 down to 20, but I think it needs to be part of a broader conversation for our budgeting moving forward beyond this fiscal year.
Right. One of the things, Renee, if you go back to your reserve number, you can see that in previous years that number has been bigger, and each of those years it's always been 20,000, and then as we get closer to the end of the year, we find that we've got more money then that we can transfer over. So generally it's always more money that we transferred, at least in the last couple of years. So that 16,000 could still be a lot higher than 16 when it comes to the close of the year, when everything is all trued up.
That's a really good point. And I do anticipate it will be much higher after we even talk about raises and things. The passport revenue alone, we haven't really talked about that. I think there's a lot of different things to talk about with regards to a number that I need to present to you about what will be transferring to reserves. And part of me is wondering when the director has typically presented you all with an estimate of what that number is. Is it usually like the last month before the fiscal year ends? Do you usually
Yeah.
receive like a proposal based on savings or based on spending? I've got meetings with my department heads on Thursday. They're tasked with telling me how much percentage of their budget lines are going to be unspent and the actual dollar amounts. They should have that number anyway off the top of their head if they know, or so that I can go line by line to assess, okay, we're estimating this percentage, I'd be able to have a more accurate reflection of what we're going to spend this year.
Yeah. Because sometimes some projects that were budgeted come in less, we will bid it out a little bit, maybe it come in a few thousand less than what so those all sort of contribute. But I would say from an accuracy standpoint, it really wouldn't be till March timeframe that you could sort of give a number and it would be a range, and typically would be a little bit on the conservative side. So
thank you, Bill. I'll make sure to plan for that.
Yeah. So looking at the capital outlay and some of the things we've talked about, do we feel after the building and grounds, do they feel comfortable with that amount that's in there for next year to cover some of the projects? We know the boiler is over and above, which I know you've got that in there at the moment, but again, looking at it from a balancing standpoint,
we didn't get that far in our meeting.
Okay.
We had Engberg Anderson Architects there to answer all our questions. And then what we did from there was prioritize projects that we wanted to see done by the end of this fiscal year. We haven't yet, but we need to prioritize projects for next fiscal year. There hasn't been any previous discussion, as I know, this year of projects to do besides the showroom, which came up differently. So that is kind of working hand in hand with this budget process. So that's the next thing that I need to bring the committee together to discuss, so that what we have in the budget aligns with what they want to do, or if we know we need something big, we at least know that we're going to dip into reserves, or whatever our plan is, it needs to align.
Yeah.
And we don't have a work plan yet. I suggested for building and grounds, at least until we get a long range plan. I'm even thinking, Matt, about our conversation about technology. I think even if we start as an organization having work plans, annual work plans, so we know what we're doing each year, that will much better help us with the budgeting and prioritizing. But it goes hand in hand with that long range, because we can't just keep looking at the things right in front of us. So, and Kathy was saying, I'm thinking of Kathy right now, but she was saying a lot of times things would just be delayed, or deprioritized, or put off. And then that's kind of how we got into the situation with building and grounds as we're in right now. So we don't want to do that. But we also need to be judicious. And there were some really good discussions about fundraising opportunities, and the foundation needs to meet. So that's going to be there too. All of that to say, it's all strategy, right? So got to put these plans together. If you'd like, I can put it up to 25. Or what do you two recommend now that we've kind of discussed?
I would leave it at the 20 at the moment, but what I would look at is, again, sort of doing the quick math in there. You've still got, when you do the modifications, and if we go the way that I think we'll go with Bettina, there's still another $6,000 that's available to expense. So if there were things like anything on the library furnishing side, we talked about tables, we talked about chairs. If there was something on the computer,
that's what I'm looking at. Because is that $10,000 just the firewall?
Yes, for this budget year.
Yeah.
What about next year? What's the 10,000 in that for, Renee?
So I'm going to pull up the document from last time. one of the
Instead
things
eliminating
was,
object.
hold on.
Yeah.
I will tell you with regard to the furniture, the Friends have money burning a hole in their, proverbial pocket.
Right.
And they asked for more funding requests before their next April meeting. And so we're putting together a furniture proposal plan of basically all the tables that
Yeah.
staff are interested in.
Right.
And we have a meeting about that next week so that I can get that proposal to them pretty soon here and we can get it all ordered. So that's
And
really
chairs to go
exciting.
with the tables.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All of that needs to be planned. Let me pull up my budget, my original budgeting document from last year or last meeting. Budget with descriptions. Oh, one of the things is monitors. I know off the top of my head. Let's see. Computer. Okay, so what we're currently planning for, there are a couple different computer needs, but we're budgeting them under different budget lines. So for example, we increased the public and staff PC software line, and that's because of Microsoft Office Suite. We're going to implement Microsoft Office 365. So that's covered somewhere else. The computer equipment, are you asking about the computer equipment line, Matt
Yeah,
and Bill?
yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got staff laptops. We don't have any.
Yeah.
I've got new monitors. And I mean, honestly, that probably is going to eat up all that already.
Okay.
Other things that we could potentially look into, I'm looking at webcams. I think I want to try and prioritize that this budget year if I can. They're not that expensive. But the biggest things right now are going to be monitors and staff laptops.
So I thought we had a $10,000 expense for the new firewall.
Yeah, that was budgeted this year. So
That's in this
we're
year. Okay, fine.
yeah,
Okay,
we're
that's
still
it.
on track. We're still on track to get that completed with CBI
Okay.
this budget year, thankfully.
Okay, that was what's concerning me.
Yeah.
Was that just a
Yeah.
$10,000 for that and nothing else contemplated? Okay,
Yes.
moot point.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right.
No, sure, of
Just-
course.
Because it looks like you've got 19 grand for this budget and you've spent nearly just over 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7,
Yes.
9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
you-
And
so
CBI
11
has already
should cover,
started the work. They've already
Okay.
started the work on the firewall and they have the rest of the fiscal year to finish it. And my understanding is it will be done sometime this early spring,
Perfect.
which means that we should be able to pay it. So that'll work out. And that's why there is a difference. I didn't ask for the full amount, but I didn't decrease the amount of the firewall given our other needs, if that makes sense.
Yep, makes sense.
So
Thank you for
I
the
mean,
color.
yeah, there's still more there, but we also don't really have, I haven't even looked at the technology plan. I'm interested in looking at, Matt mentioned today. So there could be items that we can prioritize for next fiscal year that are already identified in that plan, the
Yeah,
canvas.
so I think to Bill's point, which I interrupted, was we have that $6,000. So if there are areas like computer equipment, furnishings,
Yeah.
exterior building, we would probably want to think about where we allocate that.
So-
Not to speak for you, Bill, but is that where you're
No,
going?
that's exactly what I was thinking, Matt, is that let's keep the reserve at 20 and make sure that we're keeping up to date with some of the equipment and some of the things in there, because it's not just the building, it's the facilities and like things like Office 365 or tables and chairs. And if the Friends gives us money to go against some of the equipment, then that's great. That will open up maybe money that we set aside for the furnishing that we could use for something else.
Well, and
Yeah.
I know that the library is on a chair plan, so every 3 years, there's staff chairs, and I've told the staff already, the service desk chairs are going to get prioritized this fiscal year. They were promised new chairs for the service desk, hasn't come to fruition yet, so that's going to be done this year. So, but staff chairs also, I mean, that's part of
Okay.
the, work environment. We've gotta do.
I'm probably speaking out of turn, but I mean, if some of these chairs are in bad shape, why would we wait 3 years if
I
we
don't know. I mean, I'm coming
Okay.
on as new, so I don't think it's something that should be waiting that long, especially with how much use these chairs get. The
Right.
service desk chairs especially, I mean, they're sat-ons all day long, with multiple different staff, and they need to be flexible to accommodate as many people as possible. I can't speak for how it was done previously, but
Right.
I know that that's something that's going to be prioritized for me and with staff.
I mean, do you think, I guess when you talk to the staff, Renee, I mean, if, are our chairs in really bad shape, where that 3-year program is not really a good plan? Because the other thing is, the quality of the chairs that we have,
Yes.
that makes a big
Yes.
difference. A good
Yes.
quality chair will last a long time, but.
Yes. And I have a feeling, not just a feeling, what I'm learning is that this culture is very much about like doing what we can with the least amount of effort or the least amount of resources. Like there's almost a sense of pride of coming together to do that.
Yeah.
Hold on one second. One of my staff is coming to the door.
Okay.
Hey, do we have an emergency?
Well, I have a directly back to start program. I'm sorry, I thought one of the department had.
I did not know that. I am so sorry. So you have a virtual program now? Is that what you're saying?
7 o'clock, presenter supposed to sign on by 6:50.
Okay, what I'll do is thanks everyone, I'm sorry for your flexibility.
Yeah.
We have to continue meeting, but I'll create a new meeting and go somewhere else. So is it Eliza's?
It's Eliza's and same password.
Then yes, I have it. So thank you for telling me. Okay, we only have 2 logins for Zoom, everybody. This is a great
Right.
example of why we need to spend
Yeah.
more money on these things. So I didn't know I was using the wrong account for this meeting. So what I'm gonna do, if you're okay with it, I'm gonna send you a new invite using a different login. I'm gonna end this meeting, the recording, and then what we'll do is we'll just have part 1 and part 2 of the meeting in separate recordings. We've had to do that before. And so we don't have to adjourn necessarily, do we?
Well, I mean, what else do we have on the agenda, Renee? I mean, if we
If we really feel like we need to end now.
or
It's just the presentation discussion of revised draft. So just what we were doing.
okay.
But I do need to make a quick decision. So they have to sign on now. So and I apologize deeply for this error.
Night of scheduling snafus.
Right.
Well-
if you want, yeah, it's up to you. Renee, if you want to switch over to another account, that's fine. And rather than rush into adjourning.
Yeah. There weren't any other items on this draft budget that were yellow or that we needed to discuss.
No.
So what I could do was say, I'll schedule another meeting. The next edited draft will include Bettina's recommendations. We'll schedule that meeting with Bettina first, and then I'll revise the budget draft, maybe our final draft, and
Yeah.
then we'll meet again. And then we'll have that proposed to the board.
Yeah, I think there are only a few changes. Matt, I'm taking your format that you use for the minutes, and I'm putting the minutes together. I'll get those out still tonight, and then with the account changes and some of the discussions on there. But essentially, at the moment, Renee, assuming that we're able to do what we want to do by moving the donations in there, there's an extra $6,000 that on the expense side that you can put in. And if we look at computers, Zoom licenses, furniture, I would put it in there.
And with that, I just want to confirm what I heard. The priorities for that: computer equipment, reserves, IMRF, and marketing.
Marketing, yes. I've got down review of the marketing. I've got the IMF from 26 to 30. We're reducing miscellaneous income from 10 to 3. We've also got to add 17,000 of unrestricted and restricted donations somewhere into the revenue section. And at the moment, then with those changes, that leaves 6,000 of unaccounted expenses.
Okay, perfect. I'll also put furnishing there too.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all so much. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.